Hello and welcome to day 2 of my personal leadership challenge. Yesterday I left you with the thoughts around the old world and new world and the context we're actually in. What I'd like to share on this video is, and what I promised was, what does great leadership look like in today's world? We can take the lessons from the past, we can start to predict, but what is it that we need to do right now to be really successful? So I want to really share with you a concept that we developed called the leadership flywheel, and really give you an overview of what I believe great leadership actually is. Now, I can't tell you what to do. I think it's really important for you to think about yourself, think about your context, and develop your way of leading. What I can do is really share with you thoughts and ideas around what I've experienced, what I've learned, what I've seen, and what I've seen great leaders actually do in today's world to be really successful. And now, of course, that's been shaken up with obviously the recent events that have happened with the virus that's spreading around the world. So things are changing, and we need to really start thinking about what is it I need to do. And I bought my friend Rocky. It's a picture on the wall in my gym. I don't know if you can read that on the video, but let me perhaps read it to you. And I have it in the gym for inspiration for me, just to remind myself it's all about how you respond to situations. And let me read it to you. It says, "The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place. I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is going to hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done." Great quote to really set the scene for today's world. It's about how we respond to the situation. And for me, great leaders, it's about how they step up in a situation, a crisis. And yesterday I was really fortunate to have a conversation with one of my great friends and colleagues, Phil Davis, from international rugby fame and coaching fame now. And we were talking about how he coaches high performance, and we talked about how to thrive and how to cope in tough conditions. And when you're under pressure, how do you actually operate? And we shared some great insights around the difference between red thinking and blue thinking. So if you've not seen that interview, the broadband was pretty horrendous. I apologize about the quality, but go and have a look at it. And it's on my timeline. It's on LinkedIn as well. So go and have a look at the video. And we shared some good insights. And that got me reflecting this morning. So did a little bit of a workout this morning, and I was thinking about this video and what I'm going to share with you. And I thought about Phil and his rugby career and the amazing things he achieved. And I also thought about who are some of my rugby heroes. And one of the key things that's really jumps into my mind straight away is Martin Johnson. And he's known to get in the red mist now and again, and he's quite well known for maybe landing the odd punch on the opposition in certain moments. But what I loved about Martin Johnson, the way he played, he almost like had this extra gear, didn't he? Where if they're playing against a team that are smashing them and they're having a hard time, and he almost like could always find another gear to step up. When the pressure's on, he would step up, and I think that's for me is a great role model, and it's really important in today's world when you think about what's going on. Real leaders are the ones that step up in a time of crisis, and you don't want to be moving backwards and just hibernating and disappearing from the world. You want to be stepping up and supporting people, supporting the local community, supporting our NHS, and really getting out there and starting to lead and making sure your family's secure, and really starting to lead from the front. And I think that's a key thing. So on this video, what I'd like to really share with you is what do I believe great leadership looks like in today. In further modules and further videos through the challenge, I'm going to share with you some other insights and ideas and tools and techniques, but this is really an overview. So yesterday was the context, now is an overview of what great leadership looks like. It's a bit like a jigsaw, really, isn't it? Is that we start at the edges and we get those in place, so the context and the fundamentals, and then we can start to fill in the core, which is really the cool tools and techniques I'll share with you later on. So let's start our journey today really with having a look at what does great leadership look like. And I have a belief, and I'm going to use the flip chart again, and I'm going to draw up what I believe it really looks like. And this concept of the flywheel, what's that about, and what is it that we need to, what are the steps of leadership, what's the process? One of the things that Phil talked about yesterday on the resilience session we talked about was the importance of having, in terms of performance in tough conditions, is having structure, having the right mindset and having the right skills, and that's his performance triangle. And I think this video really is about having structure and to be able to really get that structure in place to help you and guide you through what you should be doing in a leadership context, and particularly in today's world. So let's start with the first step, and I'm going to draw it up on a flip chart. And I think, for me, one of the key lessons that I've learned from being a leader and actually teaching leadership all over these years is that you can't really lead anything until you can lead yourself first. So the flywheel, if you like, the starting point has to be really about self. And what do I mean by leading self? Well, I think it boils down to a number of things. I think the first thing is you need to really understand who you are. And what I mean by that is, what are your values, what are your beliefs, what's your personality? And there's loads of tools like Facet 5 and Strengths Profiler and MBTI and loads of great things out there that can help you to really understand who you really are as a person. And what you want to identify really is what's your way of doing things, but also what are your strengths, and make sure that you're playing your strengths. So once you know what your strengths are, you can then start to work out what your why is. And obviously Simon Sinek is famous, isn't he, for bringing that concept to us about starting with why. And I think it starts with who first, and then you get into why, because if you know who you are, you know your strengths, then your purpose will actually flow naturally to who you really are. And understanding your purpose. So for me, I'm clear about my purpose. I know what my strengths are. I really enjoy and am passionate about teaching. And I love the fact that I can help leaders. So my purpose is really about how do I awaken possibility in people and leaders and teams to deliver extraordinary results. So awakening possibility in leaders to deliver extraordinary results is my purpose. And that really gives me strength in times of crisis. I know what I'm here to do. I know what I want to do. I know what value I add. I know what I should be doing. And I know that if I'm off track and I'm not doing what I should be doing, it's easier to get back on track. And I know at the end of the day, when I'm reflecting on the day and thinking about what I've learned from the day, I know I can ask my question, have I really awakened the possibility? Have I really got people thinking differently? Have I got them doing things perhaps they thought were impossible? Have I helped them to be the best self? And if I can do that, and I've done that, then my life is great, because the rest of it flows from that. So once we know who we are, and we know our strengths, we know why we do what we do, we've got a purpose and we're clear about it. The next thing is you can work out is, what is it that you should be doing in your particular role? And this is something that we're going to talk about tomorrow on the next video, which I call my 10 leadership disciplines. So what are the things, the framework, the blueprint that I should be doing as a leader to be successful in my particular field? And it's important to understand it's contextual as well. We talked about that yesterday. Not only is it globally contextual, but it's also situational contextual as well, in terms of your role and your situation. You think about all the people in the NHS now is, what they need is strong directive leadership, support, care and support. So it's slightly different to perhaps what it was in a different environment. So once we know what we want, and we've got our 10 principles or our leadership manifesto or whatever you want to call it, then that becomes clear. Then you need to work out really is the last circle on the leading self really is how. How do I operate? What are the tools and techniques and skills and knowledge I need? So I call that my leadership toolkit. And life is all about filling that toolkit with lots of different tools. And sadly, I see so many leaders when you go inside their leadership toolkit, and then all you see is one great big hammer, those big lump hammers, and they just bash people with it, and they use the same tool over and over again. And what we need is a variety of tools to be able to look at the situation we're in, look at the outcomes we want to achieve, and then work backwards and think about what tools and techniques and approaches can I use to get the outcomes we actually need. And that's a really important philosophy. So once you know all those are in place, of course that will actually predict and actually share what your leadership brand actually is. And brand is not something you create. A brand is something that you do, and what happens is other people then see your brand and give you that brand. So it's really important to think about how you articulate that and make sure people understand who you are, understand why you do what you do, understand what you do, and then see you operating with the right tools and techniques to get the right results you want. And the key thing about that, of course, is once you know what your brand is and you can get feedback from it, you can start to build that, can't you? And I always talk about one of the things, particularly when you're starting in new teams, is around as a leader, you need to meet your people, you need to connect with them, but you also need to be able to explain your leadership philosophy. And I guess all of these circles combine, don't they, to your leadership philosophy. What is it that you're really about as a leader? So I'd urge you to, perhaps after this video, go away and reflect. It's a Saturday morning here in the UK when I'm recording this video. So perhaps have a little think and reflect this weekend around who you are as a leader. What is your purpose and why do you do what you do? What is it you should be doing in terms of your approach to leadership, and what tools or techniques do you have in your toolkit that you can actually use to achieve your purpose? And have a reflect about that and think about if someone was to ask you what your philosophy is, could you articulate it? Because I think that's a key aspect. So a good reflective exercise to actually go away after this video to think about it. So once we've got this in place and we're clear and we're being authentic, I call this really leading self is all about being authentic. It's been about emotionally intelligent. It's really about getting out there and being you, bringing more of you to the work. So I've seen lots of videos. I saw a video yesterday on Patrick Lencioni, the guy who's famous for the 5 dysfunctional team. He talked about in times of crisis, the importance of vulnerability. And I think that's so true. The fact that if you know who you really are, then it's okay to share your worries and fears. That's natural and people are warm to you and you will start to build more trust. We start to build more trust, people will open up. When people open, we start to get a more of an inclusive decision-making process in place. And when we get that, we get more commitment, we get more accountability, and we get great results. So if you've not ever read Patrick's book around the 5 dysfunctional team, well worth a read. Okay, so that's about leading self. The second thing is once we've got that in place, the next thing is, as a leader, you can't be successful without your team. So the next thing is your ability to be able to create a high-performance team, or high-performing team, I should say, but also then sustain high performance. So that's about creating and sustaining high-performance teams. And what I mean by that is, we're involved in many teams, aren't we? And I don't know about you over the last few weeks, I'm sure there's been lots of project teams started to overcome this crisis, and so we're, I suppose, a leader of many of those projects and programs, and depending on what level we are in the organization, and you're probably part of your work team as well. And let's not forget outside of work as well. Of course, there's our family team, there's our community teams, there's our sports teams that we might be involved in, and all those teams are really important. And I think the skill of a great leader is the ability to very quickly get into the concept of creating this high performance team, set this team up for success, and then sustain high performance. And on a future module, I can't remember what day it is, we're going to do that, but we will be sharing ideas and thoughts about how you do that. What you do need to do, of course, is make a promise and put your hand on your heart and promise me that you won't take what I'm going to share with you about how to build a team and forget what you're doing now and become a team building consultant. Is that okay? So there's enough competition out there at the moment as it is. We're only joking, by the way, but I'm going to show you some really insights around how we at Success Factory, how we've developed a really quick and really powerful way to get into high performance really quickly. And it's all about creating and setting up your team for success. So we'll share some ideas and thoughts around that. So once you've got your leading self in place, you've got your team in place, the next stage, of course, is that we need to think about the whole planning process. So I've not put a plan on there because I think in today's world, I think it was Mike Tyson. There's a boxing theme coming through here, isn't it, with Rocky and Mike Tyson. I think Mike Tyson is famous for the quote of saying that everyone has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. I think that's so true. And I've worked with organizations where we maybe spent a good time in December doing some really great work about next year's plan, and then something's happened in January and they've had to rejig their strategy. So the strategy and planning process in these days is far more important than the actual plan. So getting people together, get your team coherent, and using the team in a planning process and an effective planning process is really important. And I like to be able to get to a point where you've analysed all the data, you've used your intuition, you've used your gut feel, and we've got to a point now where we have a really effective plan in place, but it's still agile. And we want to get that plan in the simplistic terms down to one page. So I talk a lot around plan on a page. And it's really important to be able to get that down to that concept. And again, in later modules and later days of these videos, I'll share with you in my thoughts around the planning process, how do you create a plan with the team, and more importantly, what does that plan look like and what are the key elements of it. So I'll share with you that a bit later on. So once we've got our plan in place, I think the next stage then is around how do we then start to communicate that with meaning. And this is about taking the team, taking the concept and taking your plan out to the world. And I think it's important that we share that. So if you're in an organizational context, then it's really important to communicate your plans with the people you need support from, so your inputs, but also to communicate the plan with maybe the leadership team, but also to communicate the plan with the people that you're doing work for. So people understand how you fit into the process and what your plans are. And to make sure that your plan, of course, is aligned to their plans and the bigger picture. And ideally, if you can, you want to have representation of them in your planning process, in your planning workshop. So we come up with a coherent and aligned and effective plan. The reason I say communicate with meaning, because one of the things I learned around communication is that the fact that, is about the meaning of your communication. It's not just about understanding, but does it give meaning? In the military, we're always taught to talk about this concept of purpose. So as a leader, my job would be to explain the purpose of our mission. And that's an important thing. So I'll give you an example to make the sense of that is that, let's say we're going to do a patrol around the local area and I've got my section commanders in front of me, then what I'd be doing is I'd be talking about the purpose of the mission. So I might be saying something like, the purpose of our mission is to ensure that the locals feel safe. So what we're actually asking you to do is each of you to take a different area to patrol and to ensure that the locals feel safe and supported. Now, giving that purpose statement right at the start gives clarity to my section commanders, who can now go out and recce and work out with their teams what they're actually going to do to execute and come back and review and reflect on that. So I think that's an important concept. And what I've noticed, the difference between a good manager, let's say, and a great leader is that a good manager will do all the good stuff and make sure things are right and communicate for understanding. But what a great leader will do, will do all of that plus one more thing. They'll give the plan, the strategy, the concept, the mission. They'll give it meaning. And that's what a great musician does, isn't it? A good musician will play all the notes in the right order. A great musician will play all the notes in the right order, but also be able to convey the meaning of the music. And what was it the composer was trying to conduct, or to get across in terms of feelings and meaning from the music. And I think that's what a great musician does. And I think that's what a great leader does as well, is they've got to be able to communicate in a way that engages people, but also gives meaning. And we talked yesterday about leadership in this new world is all about being able to give clear direction. And that's what I mean by direction, about purpose-led. So rather than about command and control, it's been about more purpose-led and promise-based. What are we promising our customers? Let's execute around those promises. So we'll get into that a bit later on. We talk about a little bit about strategy in today's world and what that looks like, and value propositions and blue ocean thinking, all that great stuff that we'll talk about a bit later on. So that whole communication process, so we've got our plan out there, we've got our team in place, they've been set up, we've got our routines, we've got our rituals. I'm going to talk where we develop a team around the 6 Ps process, creating a team canvas. I'll talk about plan on the page a bit later on as well, and we'll talk about and give you some ideas about how do you communicate with meaning. And the next thing then, of course, is once we've done that, then is the next thing there is really about aligning. And what I mean by aligning, this is where this wonderful concept of system thinking comes in. And I think if you look at our team, I think they've made this whole world of system thinking really complicated, when I believe it's really simple. For me, is that it's all about how do we make sure that people are doing the right activities, they're behaving in the right way, and we're getting the right results. And we create a system that will drive the right behavior and a system that will drive the right activity. I don't believe you can tell people how to behave. You can't tell people what to do, but what you can do is create the system that is aligned to your plan, that will drive the right behavior and will actually drive the right activity. And again, I'm going to do a video purely on that concept about how do you make sure you align your goals with your purpose, with your values, and how does that cascade through the business to make sure we are aligned and people are actually behaving in the right way, and they want to, and they're doing the right activity because they want to as well. So again, we'll share some more details. So this whole alignment process is an ongoing process. It's not a linear process. We're doing it all the time. And I think it's important to make sure that we're operating in the most effective and efficient way. I see so many teams that have spent so much time on being efficient, And you can be efficient, can't you, doing the wrong things? So it's really important to be efficient and effective. And again, we'll show you how to do that. Once we've got the aligning in place, then we get into this whole concept of this momentum and this flywheel concept. So what I like to look at here is how do we create momentum? And this is really around you as a leader, as a leadership team, is to really start to think about what is the rituals and routines that you put in place to operate. So I always talk about, we have a plan in place, we have the operational stuff, the tactical stuff we have to do, but then there's the strategic stuff. And for me, that's really about how do we as a leadership team, how do we learn? So what insights are we getting? What problems are we solving? In today's world right now, I think that the organizations and teams that are going to be successful are ones that can really identify what people are struggling with. They can then generate insights and ideas about how to solve those struggles. They'll then be able to then evaluate that and put a really effective plan in place and execute really quickly to then start to deliver results. And we've seen lots and lots of examples around, restaurants and pubs becoming food shops because people are struggling to get food. And those sort of ideas and thoughts only happen when we start to set this flywheel going, when we start to have a really authentic leader, we have a really coherent team in place, we have an alignment in place, we have a plan in place, we know what we're doing, and then we're starting this whole concept of learning, and I call it this like 90-day planning sort of cycle, where we're learning, we're generating ideas, we're looking at data, we're looking at what's going on, we're generating all these different solutions, we're evaluating them, we're picking the right ones, we're picking the 2 or 3 things that we need to make really big and focus on. We're putting really effective plans in place and have a great planning process to do that, and then we're executing really, really quickly. And this whole cycle of momentum is really important. So learning, generating insights and ideas, evaluating those ideas and making decisions, to then putting plans in place, to then executing and delivering value in a really quick way. And the idea of that, of course, is that anything we do should really add value. And that's a key concept of this flywheel. And this is a bit like an ecosystem starting to develop, isn't it? Where we're starting to think about things in a different way. And of course, when you're adding value, of course, that comes back up and it closes the loop. And then, of course, we then go again. Now, a key concept of this, one of the key things about it, which is, I think, important and often forgotten when we're really busy, is the importance of learning and reviewing. So all of this will only work if we have this mindset around continuous growth. And I think in this situation we're in right now, the opportunity to support each other, to care for each other, to really grow and develop as teams is really, really important. And it's something that I'm hoping that we'll see the value of it, because there's so many teams we work with now that once they see the value of effective reviewing, effective previewing, effective learning, and an effective way of working, then they'll be a lot more successful. So don't worry if you've got lots of questions around these elements about, okay, that's great, Graham, but how do I do that? On today's video, I wanted to really share with you the concept of this flywheel, which is lead yourself, become effective, understand who you are, understand your purpose, understand what you should be doing, understand the tools and techniques you should be using, build your team, build it really quickly, get a cohesive leadership team in place, create an amazing plan with a great planning process in place, make sure the rituals and routines are in place to review regularly that plan, make sure that you can communicate that plan with meaning, make sure you then align everything that you're doing behind that plan to get focused, get rid of the noise, get rid of the stuff you shouldn't be doing, and then make sure that you then create this momentum by creating a way of working, of constant reviewing, of learning, gathering insights, scanning the environment, and talk about, think about leadership at different altitudes. There's a big world thinking, then there's organizational strategic thinking, then there's functional thinking, then there's team thinking, and then right down to task level. And sometimes in crisis modes, it's very easy to get caught stuck in the task mode. And that's important to get tasks done, but sometimes we still need to be able to have that ability to adapt and think at different levels as we're going through. And hopefully this model, this thought, this way of thinking will start to get you thinking about, what's your flywheel, what's your process, what's your way of working, what's the structure, what's the rituals and routines you're putting in place to be really effective as a team. Because once we've got this in place, we're almost like doing this cycle over and over again, aren't we, in terms of getting better, changing, adapting, be resilient, being agile. And when we do that, it's really exciting, it's great fun, it's dynamic, it's supportive, we're working together, we're getting great stuff, we're adding huge value to the organizations, we're adding huge value to the world. And I urge you to have a think about that, and let me know what you think about the process. Let me know if there's any parts missing or any ideas or thoughts you have to improve it and develop. And go out there and reflect on this video and think about, what is it that I can now do to be more effective? Have I forgotten about some of these elements? Perhaps I haven't got the right tools or techniques or knowledge about how to do these different elements. And the future videos I'll be sharing with you will bring this to life and show you the how bit. This is the what. So video 1 yesterday was the why we need to change. This is perhaps what to change to, and the next videos I'm going to share with you are all the hows. How do I do that? So how do I develop an authentic leadership brand? How do I develop a high performance team? How do I plan effectively when everything around me is changing so quickly? How do I communicate to engage and communicate with meaning? How do I align my business, my function, my team behind everything we should be doing? How do I then create momentum? What does this really look like in reality in our ways of working? And what tools and techniques can I use to make sure that we are innovating, we are improving, we are going forward? And Phil shared with me yesterday, one of the things that he got known for is the 1% coach. This whole thing about marginal gains, that whole mindset of continually improving what you actually do. Tomorrow, what I'd like to do is share with you what I call the 10 leadership disciplines. So we're going to get into the heart of this and start to have a look at what are the things that I think we should do from a habit point of view to be really successful. What's the framework? What's the blueprint of effective leadership in today's world? So I hope you enjoyed it. Share it with your friends. Let's get it out there. Let's make it viral. Give me some thoughts and ideas. Give me some feedback. Are there things I'm missing? Things that perhaps you'd find useful? And have a great weekend. And let's see you tomorrow. Bye for now.